Picture this: 740 acres of pristine Caribbean coastline, where crystal clear waters meet lush tropical forests, where the legendary Marcus Garvey once walked, and where one of Jamaica's most vital watersheds flows into the sea. Now imagine this sacred ground being transformed by foreign investors into what could either become the Caribbean's most sustainable community or its greatest environmental disaster. This is the story of Mammee Bay, and trust me, you've never heard anything like it. Before we continue, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Click the subscription button to stay notified. What I'm about to reveal will shock you about how a single development project has divided an entire nation, sparked international controversy, and could fundamentally change the future of Caribbean development forever. By the end of this video, you'll understand why environmentalists are protesting, why local communities are torn, and why this project might be the most important urban development story you've never heard of. But first, let me paint you a picture of what was almost lost forever. The northern coast of Jamaica, where Mammee Bay sits, isn't just any piece of land. This is where the Roaring River watershed begins its journey to the sea, supporting countless species of endemic Caribbean wildlife. This is where Marcus Garvey, the father of the Back to Africa movement, and one of the most influential Black leaders in history, spent time developing his revolutionary ideas about Black empowerment and African unity. The cultural and environmental significance of this place cannot be overstated. For decades, this area remained largely untouched, a testament to Jamaica's natural beauty and cultural heritage. Local families had lived here for generations, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of the land and sea. Fishermen would launch their boats at dawn, children would play in the river pools, and elders would share stories under the shade of ancient trees. It was a way of life that seemed destined to continue unchanged forever. But in 2014, everything changed. The China Harbor Engineering Company, known globally for massive infrastructure projects, acquired 740 acres of this pristine coastline. Their initial vision was breathtaking in its ambition, a luxury resort destination that would rival anything in the Caribbean, complete with high-end hotels, championship golf courses, and exclusive beaches that would attract the world's wealthiest tourists. The project promised to put Jamaica on the map as a premier luxury destination, bringing in millions of dollars in tourism revenue and establishing the island as a competitor to places like the Bahamas and Barbados. The renderings were spectacular. Imagine cascading infinity pools overlooking the Caribbean Sea, world-class spas nestled in tropical gardens, and restaurants helmed by celebrity chefs serving fusion Caribbean cuisine to international celebrities and business moguls. The resort was designed to capture the essence of Caribbean luxury while showcasing Jamaica's natural beauty to the world's elite. For a moment, it seemed like a dream come true for Jamaica's tourism industry. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn that nobody saw coming. By 2024, as Jamaica grappled with one of the most severe housing crises in its history, with over 400,000 families lacking adequate housing and young professionals being priced out of major cities, the developers made a decision that stunned everyone. They abandoned the luxury resort concept entirely and pivoted to something radically different: a sustainable residential community designed to house over 4,000 residents. This wasn't just any housing development. The new vision for Mammee Bay was revolutionary in its scope and ambition. Instead of catering to wealthy tourists, the project would address one of Jamaica's most pressing social issues: the lack of affordable, quality housing for ordinary citizens. The community would feature a diverse mix of housing options, from modern townhouses for young families to apartment complexes for professionals, and even affordable units for lower-income residents. But the developers didn't stop there. They envisioned an entirely self-contained community with schools that would educate children from kindergarten through high school, healthcare facilities that would serve not just residents but the broader surrounding area, retail centers that would provide shopping and services, and recreational facilities including sports courts, community centers, and green parks that would enhance the quality of life for everyone. The sustainability aspect was perhaps the most impressive part of the new vision. In an era of climate change and environmental awareness, Mammee Bay was designed to be a model of eco-friendly development. Solar panels would provide clean energy. Advanced water recycling systems would minimize waste. Green building materials would reduce the community's carbon footprint, and extensive green spaces would preserve the area's natural beauty while providing residents with access to nature. The infrastructure planning was equally ambitious. The community would feature modern roads designed to handle traffic efficiently, high-speed internet connectivity to support remote work and digital entrepreneurship, and public transportation connections that would link residents to the broader Jamaican economy. It was, in essence, a vision of what 21st century Caribbean living could look like when done right. However, as news of this transformation spread, the reaction was anything but unanimous. The local community found itself deeply divided in ways that reflected broader tensions about development, globalization, and cultural preservation in the Caribbean. On one side were residents who were genuinely excited about the opportunities the project would bring. They saw potential jobs in construction, property management, retail, and services that could lift their families out of poverty and provide opportunities for their children that simply didn't exist before. These supporters pointed to the chronic lack of quality housing in Jamaica, where many families live in overcrowded conditions or substandard structures that are vulnerable to hurricanes and flooding. They argued that Mammee Bay could provide safe, modern homes with reliable electricity, clean water, and proper sewage systems, amenities that many Jamaicans still lack. For them, the project represented hope for a better future and a chance to participate in Jamaica's economic growth. But the opposition was equally passionate, and their concerns were deeply troubling. Environmental activists raised serious questions about the potential impact on the Roaring River watershed, which provides clean water to thousands of people and supports a delicate ecosystem that has taken centuries to develop. They worried that increased development could lead to water pollution, soil erosion, and the destruction of habitats for endangered species that exist nowhere else on Earth. Cultural preservationists were even more concerned about the potential loss of Marcus Garvey's historical connection to the area. They argued that developing this land was tantamount to erasing an important piece of Black history and Caribbean cultural heritage. For them, some places are too sacred to develop, regardless of the economic benefits. They feared that once this land was transformed into a modern residential community, the spiritual and historical significance that made it special would be lost forever. Local activists organized protests and community meetings, demanding that their voices be heard in the planning process. They insisted that any development should respect the area's cultural and environmental significance and that the local community should have a meaningful say in how their homeland was transformed. Some called for the project to be scaled back significantly, while others demanded it be stopped entirely. The environmental concerns were particularly complex and scientifically significant. The Roaring River watershed is not just any water source. It's a critical component of the local ecosystem that supports both marine and terrestrial life. The river provides nutrients to coastal waters that support fish populations, which in turn support local fishing, communities that have depended on these resources for generations. Any disruption to this system could have cascading effects that might not be fully understood for decades. Marine biologists studying the area discovered that the coastal waters near Mammee Bay serve as nursery grounds for several species of Caribbean fish and sea turtles. The shallow, protected waters provide safe, breeding environments that are increasingly rare in the Caribbean due to coastal development and climate change. Environmental impact studies revealed that even carefully planned development could alter water temperatures, change current patterns, and introduce pollutants that might make these breeding grounds unsuitable for wildlife. The terrestrial ecosystem was equally important and vulnerable. The area hosts several species of birds, reptiles, and plants that are found nowhere else in Jamaica. Some of these species are already considered endangered due to habitat loss elsewhere on the island. Environmental scientists argued that Mammee Bay represented one of the last intact coastal ecosystems in northern Jamaica and that its preservation was crucial for maintaining the island's biodiversity. In response to these concerns, the China Harbor Engineering Company commissioned comprehensive environmental impact assessments that would guide their development strategy. These studies, conducted by international environmental consulting firms, recommended a series of mitigation measures designed to minimize ecological harm while still allowing the project to proceed. The proposed environmental safeguards were impressive in their scope and sophistication. Buffer zones would be established around the most sensitive areas of the Roaring River watershed, ensuring that development wouldn't directly impact the most critical habitats. Advanced water treatment systems would prevent any contaminated runoff from reaching the river or coastal waters. Building materials would be selected specifically for their environmental compatibility and their ability to withstand Caribbean weather conditions without causing pollution. Water conservation technologies would be integrated throughout the community, including rainwater harvesting systems, greywater recycling, and drought-resistant landscaping that would reduce the demand on local water resources. Solar panels and other renewable energy systems would minimize the community's reliance on Jamaica's electrical grid, which still depends heavily on fossil fuels. Perhaps most importantly, the developers committed to ongoing environmental monitoring that would track the health of local ecosystems and ensure that their mitigation measures were working effectively. Independent scientists would regularly test water quality, monitor wildlife populations, and assess the overall environmental impact of the development. If problems were detected, the developers pledged to take immediate corrective action, even if it meant modifying or scaling back their plans. But environmental protection was only one part of the complex equation that made Mammee Bay so controversial. The economic implications of the project were equally significant and far-reaching. The construction phase alone was projected to create over 3,000 jobs, providing employment for local workers, engineers, architects, and skilled tradespeople. For a region with high unemployment rates, this represented a massive injection of economic opportunity that could transform the lives of entire families. The long-term economic impact was even more impressive. Once completed, the Mammee Bay community would require ongoing services, including property management, maintenance, security, retail, food service, healthcare, and education. These jobs would provide stable, long-term employment for local residents and create opportunities for entrepreneurship and small business development. The ripple effects throughout the local economy would be substantial. New residents would need goods and services, creating demand for everything from grocery stores and restaurants to auto repair shops and beauty salons. Local farmers could find new markets for their produce. Local artisans could sell their crafts to residents and visitors. And service providers could expand their businesses to meet increased demand. Property values throughout the region were expected to rise as infrastructure improved, and the area became more desirable. This could provide existing homeowners with increased wealth and equity, though it could also make housing less affordable for some local residents, a double-edged sword that development projects often create. The tax revenue generated by the project would benefit the entire parish and potentially the entire island. Increased property taxes, income taxes from new jobs, and sales taxes from increased economic activity could fund improvements to roads, schools, hospitals, and other public services that would benefit everyone in the region. However, critics argued that these economic benefits might not be distributed fairly and that the project could actually worsen inequality rather than improve it. They worried that most of the high-paying jobs would go to skilled workers from other parts of Jamaica or even other countries, while local residents would be relegated to lower-paying service positions. They feared that rising property values could force longtime residents out of their communities, a phenomenon known as gentrification that has affected many developing areas around the world. The China Harbor Engineering Company found itself under unprecedented scrutiny as they attempted to navigate these various pressures and requirements. As a Chinese state-owned enterprise, they were already subject to international skepticism about Chinese investment in developing countries. Critics accused them of environmental colonialism and argued that they were more interested in profits than in Jamaica's long-term welfare. The story of Mammee Bay is ultimately the story of our collective future and how we choose to shape the world we're leaving for the next generation.